Here I am driving down California 14. It's a pretty rainy day, so not much to look at, not much to think about. So I'm going to try and see if I can list all the US states, all 50 of them, kind of alphabetically. I might get it long here and there. It's just something to pass the time. Now, it's pretty easy if you can remember one number, which is 4344218831122124. If you can kind of remember that number, then you might be able to get them as close to our festival as possible. I might miss a state or two, but let's see how we go. Okay, the first state is Alabama, a southern state I've been to. It's got a capital of Montgomery, which is like such like a British sounding name, Montgomery. I don't know exactly who it's named after, but it could be named after General Montgomery, who was a commander in the US Revolution, who died while trying to assault Quebec City. The Americans tried to take Quebec from the British, and they tried again in 1812, but they failed both times. It's one of the interesting things to think about what would happen if they had taken it and Quebec had rebelled. Would the French-speaking forests have joined the United States? Who knows? Alright, what's next? So, Alabama, Alaska, one of the states I have not been to. Capital of Juneau. The capital is not on the interstate system. It's not even on the continental road system. They're talking about building a road up because it's the Lynn Canal line. But even then, you'd have to catch a ferry to Skagway, I believe the small town is called. Right, Arizona. It's the desert, kind of southwestern state. It's one of those states that took a long time to be a state. It was taken from Mexico in the the Mexican-American War, and then it wasn't until like the 1900s that it actually became a state. Along with New Mexico, it just took them a long time. The capital is Phoenix, and I think it was Phoenix that was originally going to be called like Pumpkinville or something like that, which I think is a much better name than Phoenix. I'd move to Pumpkinville. Now, during the US Civil War, there was a Confederate territory of Arizona. When they split Arizona and New Mexico, they split them vertically, whereas during the Civil War, they split them horizontally. So like everything from like Tucson down was kind of, part of this Arizona Confederate territory. Alright, so there's one more A left, and that is Arkansas, capital of Little Rock. Yeah. Something, was he governor of Arkansas? I don't know. I've been to the one national park in Arkansas, Hot Springs, which is just like it's like an old spa town, lots of bathhouses and things like that. I've also been to Little Rock itself and London. Around the state capital, it was the worst ever road surface. It was just potholes and so I guess the lawmakers didn't want to pave their own roads. Don't know why. So there are the A's. So it's gone to the C's. California, where I am right now, capital of Sacramento. Even though it was called the California Republic, it was only a republic for like 2 weeks. I don't know how California can say. It definitely was not an independent state. It basically went, from Spain, and then the California territory was given to the Mexico. Mexico became independent, and then that only had California for like 20 years or so before Americans took it, declared themselves independent, and 2 weeks later, got annexed. The borders of California are interesting because they were set by the state themselves, pretty much. A lot of times on the western states, it was Congress that said, here's what the borders are going to be for these states. Whereas for California, they pretty much said, we want to be admitted to the Union, and these are what our borders are going to be like. So they took like all the old Mexico territory up to the old border between the northern border of California is the one that the British and the Spanish set when the West Coast was split between their colonial empires. Then the Americans came and took the West Coast from California, and also the Columbia Territory, which became Oregon and Washington from the British in the whatever it was and fight slowly they had, where they ended up just, we'll talk about that later. It's about California. So that's it. Capital Sacramento. So what's the next one? Colorado, capital of Denver. It's kind of interesting that it's capital of Denver because you never see most states have their biggest city as its capital, but Denver's a pretty big city. I kind of skirted around it. Colorado's nice. It's kind of farmland in the east and kind of arid in the south, and then it's got the Rocky Mountains in it. So it's got some nice national parks. What's it got? 4: Mesa Verde, Black Canyon of the Gunnison, Rocky Mountains, and Great Sand Dunes. I've been to them all. They're really nice parks. My parents came with me to Colorado last year and went to Silverton, and my dad really likes Silverton. He liked the old mining towns. So Colorado, Connecticut, one of the old British colonies. Capital of Hartford. I don't know, it's kind of small. I've been a bit of hike through Connecticut on the Appalachian Trail. Don't really remember much about it because when you go through New England, you just go through it so fast. You're in New York, and then suddenly it's Connecticut, then Massachusetts, and then Vermont, New Hampshire. You just kind of blaze through them all. So is that the end of the seas? Right. So then you get the 4 individual lettered states, beginning with Delaware, capital of Dover, after the white cliffs of Dover of England. Delaware, what do I know about it? Nothing. It's the first state, was it the first one to sign the US Constitution? So after the United States became independent, they had a confederation, and that only lasted like 10 years, and it just wasn't working. So they scrapped that and then made the US Constitution, which they have today, and then George Washington came out of his 10-year retirement or whatever and became the first president. But most people forget about that 10 years or so between where they had this like country before, which kind of just didn't work. So the Constitutional just wasn't there. So Delaware, DEF, Florida, capital of Tallahassee. Been to Florida. Florida's nice in places. I like the Everglades. Biscayne National Park was nice, and so was Giant Tortugas. I drove the west side of Florida. It took forever. It just seems like it goes on and on and on. And I've been to a lot of debris on the road there. What's the next state? Georgia, capital of Atlanta, another big city. It's where I flew into when I started the Appalachian Trail. I was talking about Georgia. It's where The Walking Dead's filmed. Coca-Cola, that's something to do with Georgia? I don't know. Atlanta's got a huge airport. I've been to that. And so EFGH, Hawaii. Aloha State, capital of Honolulu. I've only been to Maui and Big Island, and I absolutely loved it. I like reading up on Kamehameha, the king of Hawaii who kind of unified it. So it was independent country for a while, and then the US kind of overthrew the monarchy and annexed it, and eventually it became a state. Though parts of the Hawaiian chain was actually taken with the Guano Islands, I think Midway and Wake. think, you know, they're technically Hawaii Islands, they're not part of the state of Hawaii. They're completely owned by the federal government and the military as military bases. Yeah, H-I-G. So that's the four, yeah, the four singles. Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii. Then you go on to two Ks. Is it? Yeah, H-I-G. No, I almost missed the four I's. With Idaho, capital of Boise. More debris on the road. Like, when I went to Boise for the first time, I was trying to ask this guy in a gas station, how do you pronounce this town? Is it Boise? No. Boise. You know, and he's like, it went on for like too long. And then like after 10 minutes, the guy's like, it's pronounced Boise. It's like, you could have told me that 10 minutes ago. Tallest peak in Idaho, Bora Peak. That's just all I really know about Idaho. It's kind of got a big panhandle at the top. And in fact, it kind of follows the continental divide for its border around the east, but then Montana takes a big chunk west of the continental divide, and that's because when the territories have been split, someone lived in Montana who was a very rich guy, and he went to the US Congress and said, hey, I've got a lot of business interests in Montana, and I'd like these rich mining lands to be part of Montana. And that's why not all the territory west of the continental divide is in Idaho, and you get a really thin panhandle at the top. Idaho. So, Illinois. Yeah, capital of Springfield? Yeah. Yeah, capital of Springfield. I'm going to have to turn the wire because it's a bit more. Don't know. Chicago, Illinois. I've been to it briefly, but I don't know a thing about Illinois really. It's just this state there in the middle. Same with Indiana. Capital of Indianapolis. Indianapolis, but it looks like it should be spelled Indianapolis. Maybe they're not pronouncing it right, or maybe I'm not pronouncing it right. Yeah, Indianapolis. That's also another kind of town on the Great Lakes. I've never been. No, I have been to that state, but I've never really stopped. Just kind of drove through it. The final I is Iowa, capital of Des Moines. One of the other states I've never been to. I guess if I want to go check out corn one day, I could. I know someone who's an elected politician for Iowa, so maybe I'll get a tour of the state capitol building if I ever go. That could be kind of cool. I know the author Bill Bryson's from Des Moines, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said something like, I came from Des Moines, somebody had to. It's something like that, where it's just a place you're from. Right, so there are the I's. K's, Kansas, capital of Topeka. I've been through there, I've been to the Kansas Museum. Now, I always kind of pictured Kansas to be really flat, but it's actually quite hilly, especially on the east. Is it the Flint Range or something? The Flint Hills? Yeah, but it's a long drive through. Such a long drive to get through Kansas. Especially, head east to west or something like that. Right, Kentucky. Used to be part of Virginia. Oh yeah, its capital is Frankfort. I've been to the national park in Mammoth Caves, Kentucky, which was really nice. Near Bowling Green, I think. Yeah, it used to be part of the Virginia territory, but it's split off. Is it Cumberland Gap or something like that? Is the gap across the Appalachian Mountains to get into Kentucky, which stopped pioneers, and I think Daniel Boone or someone kind of went through. Lots of water on the road again. Okay, L. There's one L. Louisiana, capital of Baton Rouge, which I think means red stick in French. And it's probably the most famous city is New Orleans. Cajun food, and it was French. Actually, it was British for a while. So it's got the Mississippi Delta in it. It's on the Gulf Coast. Just being careful of this water on the road. I don't want a water plane. So Louisiana, KLM. Oh, there's 8 M's. I hate the M's. What's the first M? Maine, which I actually like. It's northeastern state. Used to belong to Massachusetts. Quite empty in places. Lots of timber. What's the capital of it? Augusta, Maine, sounds about right. Turning off this air conditioning, that's cold. It's dropped down to the 60s, nearly 50. Being up Katahdin, it's the finish point of the Appalachian Trail. Acadia National Park is lovely, really beautiful. We caught a ferry between Maine and Nova Scotia, Canada before. That was quite nice. Borders changed for Maine at one point. Was it the Aroostook War or the Aroostook Claim or something? Where Maine claimed a bit of Canada, and why is this guy changing hands? Debris in the road. Yeah, someone lost a tyre. It's kind of funny. If you look at satellite map of Maine and Quebec, it's like Maine is just woods, and then as soon as you get to the border with Quebec, it's roads and farmland and things like that. Maine is not as densely populated as the Gulf of St. Lawrence region of Quebec. So what's the next one? Maryland. Now I don't think it's named after Queen Mary, who was Henry VIII's daughter with Catherine of Aragon. Otherwise known as Bloody Mary. I think it is the wife of Charles I, Queen Henrietta Maria. But Charles I had his head cut off because the British became a republic for a short while. Well, if you can call under Cromwell a republic. What is the capital of Maryland? Annapolis. Yeah, Baltimore, that's probably the most famous town. I've been through it on the Appalachian Trail, like a tiny bit of Maryland. Is it the Mason-Dixon line that separates Maryland from Pennsylvania? So even though Maryland was a slave state, it didn't fight for the Confederacy during the Civil War. It stayed in the North. Because if it seceded from the Union, Washington DC, the capital of the United States, would have been completely surrounded by Confederate states. The last MA, which is Massachusetts. Capital of Boston. Been to Boston, Logan International Airport. I've actually climbed the highest point of Massachusetts, but I can't remember what it was. I think there's a lighthouse on top. If I recall correctly, something strange like that. Hiked on the Appalachian Trail. One of my friends lived in Boston, so I stayed at her house. Just outside Boston. I did a walking tour of Boston. Did all about the history of the Revolutionary War. Lots of Revolutionary War sites in Boston, Massachusetts. Let's go on to the MIs. Oh, there's too many MIs. I think 4. Michigan, capital of Lansing. Unless Lansing was the capital of Michigan, there's no need to ever know about the city of Lansing. Michigan split. Lightning. Michigan split into an upper and lower peninsula. Is Detroit in Michigan? Detroit, Michigan? Maybe. I've never been to Michigan. I've never been to the Great Lakes, so it's one of those places I'd like to go to. That's all I know about it. It's on Lake Huron and Superior, possibly. Yeah, that's all I know about Michigan until I go there. Oh no, it does have a national park. I think it's got Isle Royale. is in Michigan, which is a big island in the Great Lakes. The wolf population. MI, Minnesota. Well, St. Paul, Minnesota. Yeah, land of, is it 10,000 lakes? I've never been to Minnesota either. But that does have a national park, Voyageurs, where the old Canadian trappers would go up to get pelts. And the lake hop. What else? Minnesota. There's been another MI. Missouri? Yeah. Missouri. What is it? Mississippi, which one? Oh, it's Missouri. We'll do Missouri first. Jefferson City is the capital. It is not on the interstate system. I'm doing through Missouri. What I don't know about it, it's like a staging point for the Pony Express. Like when people used to come on the trails out west of California, Oregon trails, I think we would stop her in Missouri and head out west. So the capital of Mississippi is Jackson, named after President Jackson, one of the worst presidents ever. A very genocidal person against Native Americans, responsible for a lot of atrocities. He was also responsible for consolidating the power of the presidency, making it much more powerful and taking away some power of the Congress, I guess. I guess it might be controversial, but I don't know why you name your thunder. I don't know why you name your capital city after Jackson. Is it Mississippi that still has the Confederate flag in its flag, or is that Alabama? It might be Mississippi, I don't know. So are they the MIs? So one lap for the M's. Montana, capital of Helena. I've just been through Montana. So I think it achieved statehood in 1889. Sounds about right? Yeah, and the name Montana is like Spanish for mountains. And most of the state is pretty flat farmland. It's kind of silly that it's named Montana when I think it was a congressman from Ohio who just seemed really set on having the territory called Montana. He was in charge of the territorial thing at the time, so Montana is the name of the state. Ends, 8 ends as well. But a lot of them are older than you, so let's do any Nebraska, capital of Lincoln. Named after the town of Lincoln in England. It's probably named after President Lincoln, who was a US president during the Civil War. And he was assassinated after the war finished. He is famous for the Gettysburg Address and all that kind of thing. I've been through Nebraska, very similar to Kansas. It's got kind of a square corner missing out of it. Farmland, and yeah, I can't really think of much of Nebraska. It's something I drove through. Nevada, capital of Carson City, which didn't used to be on the interstate, but like three years ago or so, they finally dropped the interstate down from Reno to Carson City. Now the state motto is something like Battleborn for Nevada, because it was made a state during the Civil War, and it was made a state like super fast. Basically, these people just kind of, miners came into Colorado. Was it the Comstock lode or something like that of silver? And they telegraphed the state constitution to, it was the biggest telegraph ever at that time, to be admitted as a state. And I was speaking to a guy from there, and he said, yeah, because they needed Nevada to be a state during the Civil War, to stop it falling to the Confederates. And being a state doesn't mean it would fall to the Confederates. The only reason it needed to be a state was so that laws especially constitutional amendments, could easily get passed when you have a state pretty much in your pocket, like Nevada was. The only battle-born state was West Virginia, in my opinion. I'm actually heading to Nevada now. Be there in a couple of hours. It's actually been expanded territorially a few times since it became a state. First, well, it took, I think, twice it's been expanded into Utah, and then it also the southern point of Nevada used to be part of Arizona territory, but just got splashed by but that got split off and added to the Nevada territory, Nevada state instead. So maybe Las Vegas could have been in Arizona. Who knows? This is an old town. So go on to the news. There's 4 news, and the order is Hampshire, Jersey, Mexico, and New York. So New Hampshire first, capital of Concord. Yes. I've been up Mount Washington in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It's beautiful. The US State Water for New Hampshire has like the old man of the mountain on it, and from Franconia Notch, and I was there, and then the cliff face fell down and it no longer looks like an old man. So it's a shame. That was nice. Yeah, so I've only been through New Hampshire when I was on the Appalachian Trail. Kind of a small New England state. New Jersey, capital of Trenton. Yeah, I was charged by a bear in New Jersey. All the places. What else do you know about New Jersey? It's where Sopranos was set, I guess. Yeah, like it's got a kind of a bad reputation, but the bit I went through, the western part of the state, was really nice. But I've never been through Atlantic City or Jersey City. Well, I don't think I've stopped there anyway. Yeah, I don't really know much about New Jersey. Oh, I'm not sure if it's named after like the old Jersey, which is just a small island off the coast of France, the Channel Islands. You know, it's nothing like New Jersey. New Mexico, capital of Santa Fe, like Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit or something like that. New Mexico was also a Spanish territory, and when Mexico became independent, New Mexico, Nueva Mexico, and California was added, well, given to the Mexicans by the Spanish. They were actually separate territories for a while. New Mexico had a massive Native American revolt at one point, and the Spanish lost control of it for a long, long time. So it became, it was split off from Arizona, and they became states around the same time. I really like Santa Fe because it's got like adobe buildings and things like that. It's very interesting to look at. Some of the southern border is from the Gadsden Purchase, which is when they wanted to build a railroad going across the southern states, and they purchased some extra land from Mexico, and they wanted to purchase Baja California, maybe some of the other border states of Mexico. Can I name the Mexican border states? Baja California Norte, Sonora, Chihuahua, Coahuila, Tamaulipas. And Nuevo León is kind of like right on the border, but I think Tamaulipas just kind of circles it. So maybe some of those states they offered to buy, but the Mexicans only accepted to sell them like a much smaller land, and like Tucson, Arizona, that's part of the Gadsden Purchase. What else? New York. Well, I'm from Yorkshire in England, and I like the city of York. Capital of New York is Albany. New York City, I guess that's a very famous world city. I've been through kind of upstate New York. I've been through around Bear Mountain, but unless you're like in Syracuse or Rochester, it's not really upstate New York. It's still within easy reach of New York City. I've seen the lights of New York City from the Appalachian Trail, but I've never been into the city other than the airports. I just missed a Turniff? No. So New York. So there's 2 ends left. The Norths. North Carolina, capital of Raleigh. Raleigh. Maybe named after Sir Walter Raleigh, or maybe, probably not, because he's an English hero. Defeated the Spanish Armada. Yep. I've forgotten why the Carolinas are called Carolinas. I don't know. I've been through North Carolina. I've been around. The Appalachian Trail runs on the North Carolina-Tennessee border for a long time. It's really nice. Great Smoky Mountains National Park. That's partly in North Carolina. And then the other north is Dakota, capital of Bismarck. Lots of grasslands. I've been through Theodore Roosevelt National Park and saw lots of bison there. I wasn't sure about going because the name is like, was it like Theodore Roosevelt's boyhood home or something? It's actually like just a normal big expansive national park. They really need to rename it to something, not name it after Teddy Roosevelt. So are they the N's? L and N. Is it 3 O's? 3 onto the 3 O's, beginning with Oklahoma, Oregon, and Ohio. So Ohio first. Capital Columbus. Never been to Ohio. It's it's near the Great Lakes. I think it touches like the southern tips of the Great Lakes. Is it Toledo or something like that? The Toledo Strip. Can't tell you a thing about Ohio, other than it's there. It's maybe. Oh, does it have a national park in it? Wait, Cuyahoga Valley National Park is in Ohio, I believe. Yeah, never been to there. Oklahoma, capital is Oklahoma City. I think it's the only state where the state capital and the states share the same name, Oklahoma. I think is it called Native America, its slogan? Like, I think the Panhandle was taken from Texas and it was split from 2 different territories. I think one of them was like the Cherokee kind of settling area, and I'm not sure it was intended to be a state. It was intended to be like where the Native Americans were moved to after the Trail of Tears and that. And then next one is Oregon, capital Salem, highest point Mount Hood. It was part of the British Columbia territory for a while, but then the Americans start moving into I've forgotten the name of the valley. And Lewis and Clark sailed down the Columbia River in Oregon, near Astoria. Portland. Was it a fact the other day? Portland is the biggest port for corn. So all the corn just comes through Portland for some reason. It's kind of a bizarre fact now. Portland's nice. I like the coast of Oregon. The coast is beautiful. It's got a national park in Oregon, Crater Lake National Park, which is also wonderful. I went there 2 weeks ago or so. On to the P's. 1P, Pennsylvania, capital Harrisburg. Is there 1P? Yeah, 1P. Been through Pennsylvania on the Appalachian Trail. It is also nice. I've been to Harrisburg. I got the train there to Philadelphia once when I flew home. Got the Amtrak or something like that. Yeah, I've only been through the eastern part. Was it Pennsylvania founded by Quakers or something like that? It's also got lots of Amish people. I actually saw some Amish on the Appalachian Trail. PR, Rhode Island, the smallest state. I think its full name is Rhode Island and Providence Plantations or something like that. And was it the first to formally declare independence from Britain? Could have been. I'm making that up. What is the capital? Is it Providence? I've driven through it, and it didn't take very long, and I stopped in Rhode Island just to say I've been to Rhode Island, and just, I bought a sub sandwich, and the guy was like, he called it some like really regional name, and I had no idea what he meant, and he started arguing with me. I'm trying to buy a sandwich, like I just want a sub sandwich, and he's like, you mean like a hoagie or something? It's like, I don't know what I mean, just give me. Yeah, it was really rude. I guess it's that New England kind of thing where they can be kind of rude. Rhode Island, LPRS. I think it's just the two South Carolina. Capital of Columbia, probably named after, saying that Ohio, but named for Christopher Columbus. I'm not sure why the Carolinas split into two. There was probably only one territory for a while. I'm not sure if fuel's okay. Been to Congaree National Park in South Carolina. I've been near Columbia, but I've never been to it. It's on the Atlantic coast. So yeah, I can't really think much about South Carolina. Their placing trail doesn't go to it. It misses it. So South Dakota, capital of Pierre, which is also not on the interstate system. Did I also mention that Dover and Delaware's not on the interstate system? Well, it's not. I think they're the only ones that aren't. South Dakota. It's where Mount Rushmore is, the Badlands National Park, Wind Cave National Park. Kind of nice. The southwestern part of the state is really nice around the Black Hills, and then the eastern is kind of flat again. I've driven down its west side. Not been there for quite a while. How many T's are there? Two T's. Tennessee. Ooh, where is the capital of Tennessee? I want to say Nashville, but it could be Memphis. I can't tell the difference between the two. Tennessee was like one of the first states west of the Appalachians to get statehood. And I think it's something like, I'm not sure if it was Tennessee, it was another one where pretty much they decided to become a state and moved their politicians and started trying to vote on things and said, hey, we're a state now, either you can admit us as a state, but we're just going to keep turning up. And it's kind of like a strange long thin strip. I think it's from the old North Carolina territory, because after the Revolutionary War and America became independence, and they formed the United States, from which most of the territory west of the Appalachians got split off. And I think Tennessee was the North Carolina portion. I think there was some famous battle like Over Mountain Battle or something, where lots of the mountain men came from the Tennessee Valley and fought against the British and won. And during the Revolutionary War, because the Americans, colonies were quite good at using auxiliary troops instead of forming battle lines for a while. Right, so Tennessee, Texas, capital Austin. I don't know, is Texas still part of Mexico? No. The only thing I know about Texas is it's only about 10% as good as people from Texas think Texas is. Like the west part of the state around Big Bend, Guadalupe Peak is really nice. The east side, it just is so flat. There's nothing there. I remember going through like a small town, and it was like their middle school had won some sporting event like 15 years ago, and their signs were still talking about it. It's like, really, is that the only thing going on in your town? Yeah, but the capital of Austin is really nice. It's one of the better cities I've been to. It's got a fantastic avenue leading down from the state capitol building. Utah. They want capital of Salt Lake City. They wanted to call it Deseret or something like that for a while. And when they built the Washington Monument, each state donated some blocks to it, and they carved their names into the blocks. And the Utah one is still called Deseret or Deseret. You probably know about Mormons and things, and they settled in Utah, kind of a tough land around the Great Salt Lake. Yeah, I think they almost had like a war. Was the Mormon War or something like that, where there was a bit of distrust between the federal government and the Mormons, and they ended up putting a massive military base around Tule or whatever it's called, to watch over. And it took them a while to become a state, because trying to make sure it wasn't a theocracy, to be admitted as a state, especially polygamy laws and things like that. So we all know about Utah. It's really nice in some places. Arches and Canyonlands is the Moab area. That's really nice. National Park. A lot of the land is still owned by the federal government, the Bureau of Land Management and that. TU 2Vs. Vermont. Another New England state. Capital of Montpelier. It's like one of the. It's got a tiny population. It's only like 500,000 or so. For the rest of New England is kind of crowded, but Vermont is quite. Non-populated. The Appalachian Trail runs through it. The Vermont Long Trail, and then you turn east. So I've spent about 2 weeks in Vermont, and I like it, but there's not much there other than mountains and no major big cities. And then Virginia, capital of Richmond, so the capital of the Confederacy for a long time. I like Virginia. It's one of my favourite states. The Appalachian Trail spends most of its time in Virginia, so I spent a lot of time there. Kind of rural in places. And it's been broken up 3 times. No, twice. Kentucky broke from it, and then West Virginia broke from it. And during the Civil War, is it McClellan who was the commander of the US Army? He could have taken Richmond quite early on in the war, but he was a very cautious leader, and General Lee just tore him to pieces at one point. Yeah, and then Grant became commander, and he was actually decent. Yeah, so Virginia was one of the original British colonies, and its slogan is "Virginia is for lovers." What else do I know about Virginia? I thought I just knew a fact, but it's escaped my mind. TUVW. Are we on the last ones? Yeah. Capital of Washington State is Olympia. Oh, that wind. No, Seattle's in Washington. Now, Washington didn't want Alaska to be a state, and the congressman from Washington pretty much campaigned to not admit Alaska as a state. So if you're from Alaska, you should hold a grudge against Washington State, because they did not want you. I think it was something to do with fishing rights or something like that. West Virginia, capital of Charleston. It can't be named after King Charles, because that's too early. Plus, no one would name it any attack after King Charles, either the King Charleses, the British kind of hated them. They killed one of them, chopped his head off, and so it's probably named after maybe just some guy, Charles. It was split off from Virginia during the Civil War, when Virginia seceded, West Virginia didn't, and it's just stayed there. I've been through a little bit, not much. I hear it's lots of coal mining. There's strip mountain, take the tops of the mountains and just dig. I'm not sure what else there is in West Virginia. Other than that, I've been on the Appalachian Trail and I've driven it a little bit. Wisconsin, capital of Madison, who was the fourth president? I'm not very good at presidents. They don't interest me. What do I know about Wisconsin? I've also not been to Wisconsin. I think it's something to do with cows. Is it dairy? Cheese from Wisconsin? Green Bay? Is that Wisconsin? I don't know. It's on the Great Lakes. Maybe I'll go one day. Someone give me a reason to go to Wisconsin. We're on the last one now. We must be. Wyoming, capital of Cheyenne. Yellowstone National Park is in Wyoming. It's also like there's no one there. There's like 500,000 people in a very big area. Cody was nice. The drive down from Cody was nice. Matisse was nice when I drove through. Route 212 from Montana to Wyoming is such a fantastic road to drive. I think people should just go just to drive that road for a little bit. Lots of cowboys in Wyoming. That's all I know about that. Oh, yeah, also the Grand Teton National Park's in Wyoming. So it's got two. Right. What else can I do? Canadian provinces. I've only got like 4 minutes battery left. So from west to east, along only the ones that border the United States, as British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick. The ones that don't border Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Yukon Territory does border Alaska. Northwest Territories and Nunavut don't. US territories, Puerto Rico, capital San Juan, has got a few million people, it's currently going bankrupt. American Samoa, capital Pago Pago, though I believe the legislature meets in Fagatogo. It's a US territory in the South Pacific. Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. Guam was taken from Spanish-American War. Northern Mariana Islands were sold to Germany. During World War I, Japan conquered Northern Mariana Islands. World War II, the United States conquered them from Japan, who conquered them from Germany. And even though the Comoros people live on both sets of islands, they have not unified. And the Northern Mariana Islands were part of the United Nations Trust Territories, but then they were the only ones that voted to stay with the United States. So they've actually got a better constitutional position than Guam does, even though Guam's the bigger Republic Islands, capital of Saipan for the Northern Mariana Islands. So what's that? Oh, United States Virgin Islands, capital of this one. Let's go and trip me up. The final one. I don't know. Charlotte. United States Virgin Islands bought from Denmark to stop Germany potentially get a base in the Caribbean. Quite near Puerto Rico. St. Thomas is a big island. It's got United States Virgin Islands National Park. And then there's also Washington DC. District of Columbia, capital of DC, is also the United States capital. And I've only got a few seconds of footage remaining. So that's all I know about the United States. Let's keep up driving through California.